What's up? I'm Angie, and you are listening to Podcast That Pays, the podcast for online business owners who want to grow their business and sell their offers using podcasting. If you like no fluff, tell it like it is advice from a marketing-loving podcast agency owner, you are in the right place. So glad you're here. Let's dive in. Okay, I'm back, and I have another story, and I don't think I'm going to continue to announce on my podcast, like, here's the story, and then tell the story. So maybe as I go on, I will just tell stories and not have to preface it that it's going to be a story. But here we are. That's what I'm doing right now, so deal with it. But I was thinking, when I was mapping out this episode, which I cannot wait to share with you how I map out episodes. It's something that I'm doing inside of my course, which I love. And I ran my course live, and I'm currently in the middle of it. And it's like I extended it. I was doing it for 4 weeks, and then I extended it for 8 weeks. And I just love all the people who are in there so much that I just don't want to let it go. Like, let's just stay in community together and like work on everything on our podcast. So anyway, back to the story. I am a cigar bar goer. I love going to cigar bars. And there is a cigar bar that I go to. Well, actually, the one that I've been going to forever closed because they were renovating. And so I was forced to go to this other one. But now I've made friends there. So I like to go alone. You know, I like to interact with the men. Like, let's just be honest, cigar bars are great places to interact with men. And so I went, and if you can't tell, pretty extroverted, and I'm usually the one at the bar that is the loudest and telling stories or talking about crazy shit at the bar. That's me. If you walk into the bar and you hear someone loud saying something absolutely crazy, that's probably me. So anyway, so I started going to this new bar, and there is this guy who, when I started going, he aggravated the shit out of me because sometimes I like to go and bring my computer and do work. And he, and I was not drunk, and the first time I met him, and he was. And so I'm sitting over there trying to do work on my computer, and he kept messing with me over and over, and it was so annoying. Like, you know, the feeling of being sober in a room full of drunk people is not pleasant, just so you know. So anyway, we end up hitting it off, not that night, but hitting it off, being really cool. It's these two guys. I love them so much. I'll give them a shout out, Clinton and Russell. And I love hanging out with them so much. Maybe they'll listen to this episode. I'll tell them the next time I'm at the bar. But every time I come to the bar, I sit with them, they buy me drinks, we have the best conversation, and it's been so fun. So the one guy, Clinton, it's funny, I'm saved in his phone as the finest bitch I've ever seen in my life or something like that. And he said I made him save it like that, but it's really funny because I completely forgot that. But anyway, so he would make comments about, like, to me, that led me to believe that he was like semi-interested in me or liked me. And I like come to the bar over and over, and he never asked me for my phone number. And I was just fully prepared for him to have asked me. I mean, we've talked about going to, which I am going to go this year, to a biker convention. Like, I'm turning 40 this year, and I'm like all about doing, and my daughter's graduating from high school and going to college. So I'm all about just like experimenting and doing the things. And so I'm going to a biker convention, Sturgis, which is in like South Dakota, something like that. And he wants me to ride on the back of his Harley from Louisiana to South Dakota, which is a no. I will fly and meet you there. But anyway, so we've made all these plans, talked about all this stuff, and he's never asked me for my number, okay? And one day I just called him out. I was like, dude, like, are you ever going to ask me for my number? Like, are you scared? Like, what's the deal? Like, what's the problem? Like, what is going on? I know that you clearly kind of crushing on me, whatever. We're talking about going and like practicing riding bikes and me getting a helmet and all this stuff. And so I can't even believe the words that are coming out of my mouth right now, but they are. And so I asked him, and he didn't think that I would ever be interested. It's just bar banter, which it mostly is, and it's fun. And, but still, like, I was going to give him my number. I would go hang out with him. I think he's super cool. I have so much fun hanging out. But anyway, he didn't think I was interested, even though I was willing to give it to him. Hey, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, I really need to up my podcasting game, or you want to start utilizing your show more for your business to get more leads and sell more offers, then I want you to come over to podcastthatpays.com and check out the Podcast Collab Lab. That's podcastthatpays.com and check out what we're doing over there. I would love you to join us. Okay, back to the show. So it made me think when I was mapping out this episode, I thought about that because I had a client a while back. We were in a session and we were mapping out our podcast, all her content. And when we got to the part of talking about what her commercial was going to be, because I make everybody do a commercial, everybody does an ad. This blows my mind that people are like, I don't want to do a commercial. I don't want to do an ad. I don't know. Is that bothering people? And I'm like, or they want to put it in their like outro. And I'm like, chick, listen, boo-boo, honey, if you ever get to the point where you can have sponsors on your podcast, do you know where they're going to put their ad? Because I could tell you it ain't going to be in the outro. It's going to be either pre-roll or mid-roll in the beginning or in the middle of your podcast. And in the first 25% is the most valuable. And actually, when you strike up deals with sponsors, the closer it is to the front of your episode, the more money you can charge. And that is because why, people? That's your prime real estate. Because although 86% of people who land on your podcast are going to listen to the entire one, the majority listen to the beginning, okay? There still is some fall off towards the end of your episode. So you got to put in the beginning. So we were talking about the commercial, and she said to me, you know what? I was thinking that I was going to, in my commercial, I'm going to send them to my email list, masterclass, something like that. And please, God, stop sending people to masterclasses from your podcast. But I'm going to digress right now, and we'll talk about this later. But she was going to try to figure out, send them to their email, whatever. And she said something that just like stuck with me that I was like, I bet you everybody's thinking this, because listen, if I'm not good at anything, I'm good at listening to what my people are experiencing. I know my ideal clients. I hang out with my audience. I rock with them hard. I have actual 70 plus like production clients that I get to personally experience the things that they're going through as they're recording, as they're launching. I listen, okay? It's a very valuable skill. When you're a marketer, you have to listen. So what she said was, I would just assume that you don't send people directly to your offer from your podcast, right? And she said it like that. And like, I was like, and that right there is the reason why people can't make money from their podcasts. That right there. If you caught that right there, after I told you that whack ass story about the bikers, but you caught that. If you don't catch anything, catch this, that the assumption that you can't send someone directly to your offer from your podcast or sell is the thing that is keeping people back from making money from their podcasts. Okay? Because if you never ask for the phone number, how are you going to get it? Closed mouths don't get fed. If you never go after the thing, if you never ask for the sale, how are you going to freaking get it? And so the number one reason why people can't make money from their podcasts and don't is because they don't ask. They don't sell. They don't talk about their offers in their podcasts. They don't have a commercial in there. They're being scared. Stop being scared. And a lot of people, and it's really stupid, this comparison, but it's like semi-valid, but they're like, Nike doesn't, wait for you to get warmed up and then sell you. They send you like 50 emails a fucking day. It's true. It's not the same kind of business, but it still is true. It's still true. You are a business. Like, the primary function that keeps your business afloat? Cash, sales. Like, that is your primary function of existing. And so on a podcast, it seems it's not natural for people to think about a podcast as a place to sell because, and I don't know why, I think it's just lack of knowledge, but this podcast, this is the quickest way to warm people up. This is the best platform. You have people's attention. Why wouldn't you tell them what you're offering, what you're selling? Like, why wouldn't you tell them? Everyone on this podcast who's listening already knows I have production clients and knows I have a course because I've talked about it over and over already and knows I'm doing a 3-day event because I've talked about it. And I still have an interesting episode. It's not like I'm coming on here like a robot, like, hey, buy my shit. But I'm just talking about it. So anyway, they don't ask, so they don't sell. And that is the number one reason why people don't make money. The next thing is maybe they're asking too many things. Something that happens with my clients is that I make people focus on one thing, one ask. Because if you remember back in the last episode that I recorded, back in episode 5, I was talking about how we want to drop them that one URL and we want them to remember that one thing because we understand the behaviors of our people when they're listening to a podcast. They're doing other things, but we want that one thing to get into their brains. It's the marketing principle of repetition because it's an actual principle. It's important. So if we just, because we understand our user, because we understand that our user is out riding their bikes, they're out walking their dog, picking up shit. That's what I tell everybody. When they ask me stuff about podcasting, I'm like, imagine your audience is me, who's walking their dog and picking up shit. My little 8-pound chihuahua shits 4 times every time we take a walk. I don't know how she has all the shit in her. She holds it in. She loves, it's her favorite thing to do. So while I'm walking, I'm listening to podcasts and I'm picking up shit, literally. That's what I'm doing. So if I have to go for each episode, I'm going to download a different worksheet. I'm going to a different link. I don't know. I blah, 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 blah. You're telling me about this course, this one. You're telling me about this. Like, it's confusing. It's not clear. So you have to be super clear and stop asking them to do so many things. And I could say that principle is the same when it comes to sending them to your email or sending them to a masterclass. It's like, hello, we're already nurtured. We're already pretty nurtured. So we don't need to send them to another thing to nurture them. Let's at least give them the opportunity to know what it is that we sell. Okay? And be very straightforward and direct about it. And there are times when you'll have things that come up, like I do, where I have a 3-day event. And so I'm talking about that. Whereas any other time, I will be in my ad, like directing people straight to my course. Because number one, remember, I can retarget them and now they know what I'm selling and now they're in my ecosystem. And number two, I don't need them to always come to a workshop. I don't need them to take an extra step when if they're listening to my podcast, this is where I'm nurturing them. This is where they're getting to know me. I don't need to do all this extra shit. I don't need to send them all these extra places. So stop asking too many things. So stop not asking on one end, and then stop asking too many things. Stop doing too many things. Like, make it very, very clear and repetitive, and people know what you sell. People know what that offer is, and they know who it's for, so that when they're ready, they know it's very clear where they can take action. And then you also, to my last point of this, is of why you can't make money from your podcast, and I talked about this in episode 5 as well, is like, you're not tracking anything. Like, how can you know, and this is the marketing mind in me coming out, it's like, how can you know what to do to change to affect any numbers if you're not tracking anything. If you don't know who's coming to your website from your podcast, if you don't know what offers are converting better, if you don't know what episodes are converting better, if you don't know, you have to be able to set this up so that you can see the data, so that, because marketing and sales is highly just a law. It's just a numbers game. It's just knowing the data, taking the emotion out of it, right? Taking the emotion out of your sales process, your marketing process, and saying, here's the data. I know that in my podcast, I convert at, 10% of people who listen are even coming to, visit the page. So now 10% are coming. What percent of those? And I know that of those 10%, 3% convert. So now if I want to get a higher rate or sell more from my podcast, then if I can double my listenership, then now I know that I can double what I'm making from my podcast. But you can't know that or if something's not working. So let's say you have the same ad and people are coming to the page and nobody is signing up. Then maybe that's not working. Maybe you do need to change, and maybe people do need more nurturing for what your topic is. Maybe they need more, and some people do. And so it just depends on what your business is, and really understanding that and understanding your marketing and your sales cycle and your customer journey to know how you're using this in a smart way. And I know that sounds like a lot to think about. But honestly, this is why people aren't making money from your podcast. This is why people are burning out from their podcast, because they're not setting it up with the intention as a business tool. Now, if you don't use your podcast in conjunction with your business, this literally is not the podcast for you. I am speaking directly to business owners who are using their podcast and who want to use their podcast to create more impact, to get their name out, to have more credibility, and to sell more shit, to bring more people into their business, to grow their business and sell their offers. That's what I'm talking to. So if you are not thinking about your podcast in that marketing way that I just said and tracking what's happening, you're missing a big, 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 big chunk of it. And again, I'm going to get deeper into some actual things that you can do that to track things, right? I'll teach you that, how to track and what you need to be setting up, because it's a part of the framework of creating a podcast that pays. You need to know how to do this, right? And so those are the reasons. You need to sell, you need to go gangbusters. You need to talk about your shit. I shared a post on Instagram today that's don't underestimate the power of literally just being in your audience's face all the time. Don't underestimate the power of repetition. Okay? So if you don't ask, you don't eat, closed mouths don't get fed. Be very clear, be direct, and track what you got going on and know what you're doing so that you can replicate, duplicate, and double down on what you're currently doing that's working, right? So that you can begin to see even more and more and more results. So if you love this, of course, share it with a friend. I love you. Come over to Instagram at Angie M. Jordan and say hello to me. I would love it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, head over to podcastthatpays.com to get started on your way to creating a podcast that pays. And don't forget to follow this show and take a screenshot that you were listening and tag me on Instagram at Angie M. Jordan. I'd love to meet you and show you some love over there. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Let's get this money.